Hi everybody, greetings from what can only be described as a stunning morning here in Cape Town. It's going to be a lovely day. Thank you very much for all the comments on the previous video clip. Yeah, Josiah was the hero of the story, eh? I certainly learned a lot from reading all your remarks. Thank you for that, much appreciated. Well, I think we'll just get straight on into the next part of the story, shall we? You know, one of the things that I always remember about Rhodesia and that have stuck with me is the way in which the country developed. There was always this sense of change, that things were improving, that things were getting better. I suppose it's true of any country, but it seemed to be much more apparent there in Rhodesia. For example, I can remember when the broadcasting service consisted of two radio stations, one that catered for the interests of the African people and the other for the interests of the European. And they would come on the air about 5 o'clock in the morning, I suppose, and they'd broadcast until about just after 8, and then come on again at lunchtime, and then again in the evening. By 9:30, the airways were quiet until the next day. And this progressed in time until there was a multi-channel television service. And despite the fact that there were sanctions against us, you could sit in the comfort of your home and watch the latest movies on your television screen. Yeah, the landscape was changing in Salisbury too. At one time, Trafalgar Court was the highest building in the city, and eventually that was just dwarfed by skyscrapers many stories higher around it. Out in the countryside, and the strip roads that we were famous for disappeared steadily. They were replaced by modern highways. The low-level bridges, which in the early days so often were flooded during the rainy season, and you know, they interrupted your journey. You couldn't continue till the water receded. They all disappeared too, to be replaced by high-level bridges. You could proceed on your journey knowing that you weren't going to be interrupted in any way. On the labour front, I would see how that the lot of our workers was steadily improving every year. New schedules would come out of wages and conditions of service published by the government, and wages were increasing year by year, which meant that our people were improving their lives, and even my own situation too was improving. I considered that to be the case. So, you know, one was sort of left with the impression that with all this continual improvement, and I've only just given a few examples, I mean, you could see it all around you. You had the idea that your life was pretty stable, you know, and that if things followed the natural course of events, you would get to the end of your working life with a comfortable pension and you know, and a nice home, and you could enjoy your retirement in that way. It was something, not that I pondered over, but it was in the back of my mind, and something I could work toward. However, that may all have been true for the things that you could see around you and, you know, the material things of life. But on the political front, things were a little bit more difficult. And I don't want to labor the point here too much because it's not the purpose of this video. But black nationalism was also evolving, and it had moved from civil disobedience to armed resistance, and finally, in its latter stages, to outright terrorism in its most vile form. So the country had to deal with that, and it rather cast a shadow on the future. You see, we had occasions where people came from the north, from countries there that had been granted independence, and they brought with them harrowing stories of massacres that had taken place, how people had been violently and cruelly put to death in those lands for no particular reason, honestly, other than the fact that they were not African. And you know, this rather made us as Rhodesians nervous. We didn't like the idea that we might have to find that as part of our experience in the future. And we determined quite early on that that wasn't going to happen. So our government charted a path toward responsible black majority rule, and it was there, laid out in legislation in the form of a qualified franchise. Again, I won't go into that. You can research it for yourself, please do, and you'll see that you know, we had a plan for the future. We weren't just going to, you know, bumble along, as it were, and just deal with things as they came our way. No, there was a definite pathway charted for the country, and it would have, by now, it would have arrived at that point, I believe, peacefully, and I think it would have been a country that would have maintained its prosperity and its first world status, and its reputation as being the breadbasket and the jewel of Africa. No doubt in my mind that could have been the case right now. Its citizens could have been prosperous, happy, and not spread around Africa and even spread around the rest of the world as they are now, living in abject poverty under a dictatorship. Any hopes that we had of the British government assisting us were useless. And you'd think that they would have gone out of their way to protect us and stop the murders and the killings that were taking place by the terrorists. No, they did nothing of the kind. They, rather than helping us, they would rather choose to help our enemies, who in theory were their enemies too. So I'm not going to say anything more about that, because I can get upset very, very quickly, and I become very resentful when I talk about the part that the British government had in the developments in Rhodesia. Shocking. Enough said now. So, bearing all that in mind, the fact that the country had tremendous potential, and we all wanted to be, you know, the beneficiaries of that, and also bearing in mind the fact that the political situation seemed to undermine that considerably and put everything at risk. You know, we had to fight for the security and the stability of Rhodesia, and people were doing that more and more. Men were going off into the bush, and more people were being killed. Soldiers were dying, policemen were dying, government servants out in the bush, tip attendants, agricultural advisors, being hacked to death for doing their work, that's all. Farmers were being killed, families being brutalized, murdered, missionaries being killed, innocent travelers between cities being ambushed on the road and killed. Everybody was fair game to these terrorists. Nobody was excluded. You could lose your life in an instant. So it was a very unsettling time for us all. And what made it rather difficult for me was the fact that I considered myself to be sitting at home doing nothing. I wanted to do something. I wanted to make a contribution, you know, for whatever, in whatever small way, to, you know, to help the stability and the security of my land. But I was at a loss as how to do that. I, I had armoured car experience when I was in the army, and I knew that the police had an armoured car unit. Marmon Harringtons were the vehicles, very old. They look like they should be in the desert with Lawrence of Arabia. They weren't quite that old though, and they were manufactured here in South Africa under license. Some of them sent up to Rhodesia, eventually turned into police vehicles, turrets removed. But anyway, I thought maybe I could find a home for myself there amongst them. So I went off to Morris Depot, where these things were quartered, found somebody there that I could speak to, and he took me along to where these cars were. Well, I won't say they were haphazardly parked around, but it was very close to that, which was surprising because the British South Africa Police is a sort of place where everything has to be in its in its right spot and to be in top condition. And here these cars were one parked under a tree, another one standing here. There was a sort of an air of decay about them. And this man that was speaking to me said, we don't have a dedicated group that use these things in an operational way at all. They're mostly just left here, almost to their own devices. And if an incident takes place or some appropriate event occurs where we think one of these Marmon Harringtons might be useful, somebody will go in and try and start them up and get one that's running, and then go off with it, and then bring it back and just leave it. He said, but as a matter of fact, to be quite honest, I think they've come to the end of their service lives. I don't think you're going to see any of them on the road again. So, yeah, sorry man, we can't help you. There's nothing here for you in terms of a formal armoured car unit. So I left there. That didn't work out very well, but of course I was still a member of the BSAP Special Constabulary. But that wasn't getting anywhere. I thought, plenty of lectures, a couple of visits to the range with the greener shotguns, a very nice walk through the science forensic laboratory at Police HQ, which was very interesting. But that was it now. To my mind, no patrols, no operations. It didn't seem to be making a very, very good contribution to the security of the country. So, I thought to myself, I think I've got to get back into the army. That's what I need to do. And I didn't think initially that this would be too hard. Made a few phone calls. People, accepted me, spoke to me quite politely, until we got to the point in the conversation where we spoke about permanently medically discharged. The minute those words are mentioned, all discussion comes to a stop. We've got to continue beyond that point. It's like a great big iron door is shut, boom. There's no key to open it. You can't. And they would just say, well, thank you for your interest and your willingness to serve, but, your medical condition disqualifies you from any service within the Rhodesian security forces. Well, a few phone calls didn't entirely discourage me. I then resorted to writing. And, in Rhodesia, a civil servant, if he received a letter on his desk, he was obliged to answer that immediately. If he was occupied by something else, as soon as possible then. But certainly, preferably, before he went home, he had to acknowledge that letter, even if it was just to say, dear sir, I've got your letter and I'll get back to you on this matter. So all the letters came back, but they all said the same thing. Sorry, we can't help you. You're disqualified by virtue of your medical status. So, I wasn't getting anywhere with that. But I worked with a man by the name of Harry Geddes. He was a sergeant major. And I was, talking to Harry and pouring out my woes. And he listened to me and he said, "No, Martin, you're going about this the wrong way. You're trying to do this, in a very, very formal way, and you're just going to come up against a brick wall. You need contacts. You need somebody that can pull strings, somebody that can, kind of manipulate the system for you and then get you back in the army." I said, "Harry, is that possible?" He said, "Yeah, I'm the guy." He said, "You leave it to me. I got plenty of contacts." He said, "I'll organize this for you. You just wait. Be a bit patient. Give me a bit of time." Yeah, you might do that in some other country, Harry. You're not going to do it in Rhodesia. He tried and he spoke to people and he drew on favors and he did everything. And every one of them said to him the same thing. "Sorry, the guy's medically discharged. How on earth are we going to put him back in the army? It's, it can't be done." So Harry eventually came to me very crestfallen, and he said, "I'm sorry, my dear friend. I did my best, but I haven't been able to do what you wanted me to do." And I thanked him for that. But yeah, Harry, shame, man. He's a good guy. He did what he could. The old pioneer farmers and miners in the old days, they had dogs and they kept a bit of livestock as well to sustain themselves. And sometimes it would happen that they'd have a dog that you just couldn't train, and he'd kill chickens. And they had a cure for that. They wouldn't whip the dog or yell at him or anything like that. They would just take the carcass of this chicken and tie it around the dog's neck in such a way that he couldn't get it off, and just leave him, let him wander around. So as this carcass started decaying, the smell would be in the nostrils of this dog, and he would try his best, try and get it off, but he couldn't on account of where the thing had been tied. So the dog would walk around very miserable. It didn't feel like life, constantly breathing in this rotten carcass, until eventually the thing fell apart, and the dog was freed from his situation. And never again would that dog go near a chicken. They were safe. Well, this word, permanently medically discharged, was like a dead chicken around my neck, when it came to apply for re-entrance into the army. I couldn't get rid of it. There was no way around it. It hung around my neck, and it kept everybody at a distance, kept the army away from me. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with me. One night I'm sleeping. I suppose all these things are working on my mind, and I have this dream. And I dream I'm on a farm. And there are two water tanks, and it's nighttime. And I'm walking around the side of one of these tanks. And as I do so, I come face to face with a person. He's standing in the shadows, and he has a rifle in his hands. It's pointed downwards. And as I become aware of him, he raises this rifle, pulls the trigger, and the bullet hits me right in the stomach. So vivid is this dream that it feels as though someone has hit me with a sledgehammer. And I think I sit up in bed from the shock of it. And so I walk around the next few days pondering this dream, not looking for any special meaning. I'm not that kind of a guy. I don't lean to that kind of stuff. It's just a dream. It's nothing more. It's a dream. But what worries me is that one man's dream can be another man's reality. So whereas I can get up safe in the morning and go to work after a dream like that, for another man, has happened on his farm, and his life is over. And it troubles me. I'm still at home. and I want to do something for my country and for the people that live there, and I can do nothing. And so I decide one morning I'm going to take time off from work, and I'm going to go to Army HQ, and I'm going to face them, face the lion in his den, as it were. I get on my motorbike down to KG6 barracks, in there, off to the hospital. That's where my career ended. Maybe that's where it'll start again. Now, there's a medical examination room on the corner of the building, and I'm heading for that. I get off my bike, I start walking in that direction, but I see a long queue of young men dressed in their PT shorts, shirtless. Must be about 100 of them. And I suppose, well, these are men that are probably going for a medical examination for an intake. Well, I hadn't counted on that. I was hoping that I could have had a quiet chat with somebody there, you know. But now this place was humming with activity. Anyway, I've come this far, I'm not turning back. So I walk up to the door of the medical room. There's an orderly standing there with a clipboard under his arm. He sees me approaching him, and as do these young men, and all conversation falls silent. You must realize by now I'm just in my 30s, so I'm a lot older than the orderly and these men standing there. And they're wondering, what is this old guy doing here? You know, this might be more interesting watching what's developing here than listening to my buddy talking next to me. So there's silence, and everybody looks at me. So orderly says, what are you doing here? Can I help you? I want to see the doctor. You know, you can't see the doctor, man. Look, very busy this morning. You can see for yourself. Oh, I need to see the doctor. About what? Well, the thing is, I was medically discharged, and I'd like that overturned. What? I don't understand you. Why are you here? So I want to see the doctor for that purpose. You can't see the doctor. And somebody calls a name out there, and I guess it's the orderly, so he turns on his heel to go inside, to go and see what they want him for, and I follow him in. He becomes aware of this, stops quickly, and he says, outside, you can't come in here. So I'm not going outside. So another voice, a little bit irritated, calls, what is that man doing in here? Orderly says something about his medical discharge. Tell him to get out. I call back, I'm not leaving. Orderly says to me, stand to one side here, you're in everybody's way. The room is packed, man. This guy's having their eyes tested, others having their weight taken, others having their height, and all of this stuff is being recorded, and there's a lot of activity going on there. Must be about maybe 3 or 4 doctors attending to this, I think, judging by the pips on the shoulders. It's not long before somebody says again, what is that man doing here? So he won't leave, wants to see the doctor. So a major comes over to me, and you know, there are some people in life that you just click with, and he was one of them. A nice guy, saw it straight off. He was a decent human being. So he smiles and he says, good morning. He says, I'm sorry, we're quite busy here, but let me see if I can help you quickly. You know, what can we do for you? So I said, look, I used to be in the army. I got a permanent medical discharge. I'd like that re-evaluated and overturned. He says, what were you discharged for? I said, lung operations. Okay, let's be quick. Just, you know, just take a quick look. Loosen your shirt. Pull my shirt out. He stands behind me, pushes my shirt up. But now I'm squirming, eh? So I'm kind of, I don't mind him seeing one scar, you know. Just try and make the problem half as big as it actually is. He's no fool, eh? He pushes me on the shoulders. No, hang on, stand still. moves me this way. He says, other side as well? I said, yeah. What happened here? I says, I think they took out half a lung on each side. Tuck your shirt in. Takes me away from the silence in that room now. Nobody's checking anybody's weight or checking their eyes. Everybody's standing still, looking at us. He takes me into a room adjoining the medical room, closes the door, and he says to me, tell me again, you want your medical discharge overturned? I said, yes. He says, that can't be done. So I said, I want to get back in the army. He said, what for? So I said, I want to help my country. He said, you know, there are guys there who are going to argue with me this morning that they're unfit for service. And I've got to deal with that. And I've got a guy in the office here who's unfit for service, who insists that he joins the army. He says, you know, I don't know what's happening to the world. Are you sure about this? Are you married? Have you got kids? I said, yeah. He said, well, go home, you know, sit it out, let them do it. I said, no ways, I can't do that, sir. So he says, let me think a bit. And he actually turns around and he walks up and down a couple of paces, and I just keep quiet. And he says, look, if I was to do anything, the best I could do is reevaluate you at SCAT 3. So I said, okay, will that get me in the army? Oh, he says, if it gets you into the army, it'll get you into an office job, maybe at the pay corps or in a store somewhere. He said, but that's all. You'll never be a combat soldier. You'll see nothing more than that. It's office work. Do you want to go and do paperwork? I said, I'll do paperwork. I don't mind. I'll do something for my country. He says, okay, I'll tell you what. Can you wait outside for me for 20 minutes? And I'll see what I can do. All right? So I said, okay, sir, thank you. So I go and I wait outside. And I watch the guys going in one by one for their medicals. Everything is back to normal there at the hospital. Sure enough, eventually here comes the orderly. He's got a brown paper envelope, A4. And on there is written, if I remember correctly, Sergeant Penny, 5RR, Cranbourne Barracks. Orderly gives it to me. He says, the Major sent this to you. He says, you must go to Cranbourne Barracks, go and hand this in. Do you know where to go? I said, yeah. He said, okay, good luck, eh? So, on my bike, off to Cranbourne Barracks. The guard stops me at the gate, unzip my leather jacket, take out the envelope, I give it to him. He says, do you know where to go? I said, I'm not sure. He says, catch a right here, go down the drag. Before you get to the end of the lines, you'll see 5RR HQ. Report there. Thank you. On my way, I find the place, I get off my bike, I go inside. Old buildings. Yeah, it's an old airfield, from the Second World War. So I walk in the building, there's a solitary NCO there, whom I take to be the man whose name is written on the envelope. I hand it to him. He gives me every impression that he's expecting me. So I think, yeah, the Major must have phoned him. So makes me feel at home. Yeah, let's get you kitted out, down to the QM store. Uniform, boots, everything else. Oh, it's almost too much to put on the motorbike, but I stuff it in the various packs. Down my lumber jacket and tie on what I can. Sergeant Penny helps me. We chat about this, that, the other, about motorbikes. We shake hands. I go. I'm happy. I'm back at home. Been gone a couple of hours, and the unthinkable has happened. In the morning, I had woken up, still permanently, medically discharged, unfit under any condition for service in the Rhodesian security forces. Yeah, here I am. I'm a member of 5RR, and I'm so happy. A few days later, I get a brown card with a new registration number. Comes from the Ministry of Defence. So there are not many Rhodesian soldiers, I think, I've not met any other than myself who have got 2 registration numbers. Yeah, but I had 2 registration numbers. And then again, a few days later, here come my call-up papers. So I have to report to Battalion HQ on a particular day, early December. And by all accounts, looking at the dates recorded on the documents, I will be in the army over Christmas. So I'm down there at the appointed time. It's an awful morning, eh? The rain is pouring down. The battalion HQ is almost standing in a pool of mud. Water everywhere. People everywhere. Folk milling around, saying goodbye to family members, unloading kit. It's quite hectic. So I'm expecting to be told, all right, okay, this is your office, or this is your desk, or this is where you're going to be working, and we want you to do this and this and the next thing, which is fine. I'm ready for that. I've even got a nice new biro pen with me, so that I won't be caught short having to borrow a pen to write with. So I'm prepared. But time seems to, drag on. Go down to the ablution box. For those of you who remember 5RR HQ, there's like a little veranda outside that building, and I take shelter there. The rain's coming down. I meet a man that I work with, Francis Hackforth, and we exchange pleasantries for a while there, and then the call comes that we should all go down to the armory. Oh well, I go down to the armory, and I get issued with an FN. So, I reasoned to myself, well, I suppose even an office-bound soldier should have a rifle stuck in the corner, So I got the rifle, hang around a bit more, right, everybody on the trucks. Load my kit on one of the trucks. Oh, well, so I'm at least going with the guys. I won't be based up here in Salisbury. So, there must be a headquarter element to the company, so, I'll be with them. Okay, that's cool. See a bit of the bush then at any rate. Off to the range, 0 rifles. Oh dear, haven't fired a rifle for many a year. But okay, it's not too difficult. I remember most of what I have to do. After I've fired my rounds, Sergeant Major walks past and I give him the declaration, no live rounds or empty cartridge cases in my possession, sir, and that satisfies him, and he walks on. So yeah, I get through the zeroing fine. Grouping is not too bad, and back on the trucks, and now we're off to the Bendura gold mine. Now, for those of you who know that mine, there is a huge shed there. I don't know what function it performed when the mine was operational, but they quarter us in this shed, enormous place. Easily hold a full company. Must have been about 80 of us, I suppose. Men put out their sleeping bags and their stretchers, and they settle down. We're given something to eat, and I'm on guard duty 12 o'clock till 2 o'clock. I do that, I come back again, I try to sleep, I can't sleep, there's too much snoring and disturbance around me. I'm not used to it. In the morning I decide I want to clean my rifle. So I tackle that job. Bed space diagonally away from me, 3 or 4 spaces away, is a young soldier sitting watching me. I work with him. I didn't know he'd be called up with me, to go to 5RR. He's ex-RLI, Nigel Twelves. Quiet guy, a man who he'll speak if you speak to him. He'll answer you. But a very, very nice bloke. So he's watching me, and he's sharp, eh? He's no fool as Nigel. So he can quickly see my old friend here doesn't know what he's doing. So Nigel gets up and he comes across to me and he gives me a few pointers, and it all comes back to me immediately. So yeah, I can strip the weapon down, clean it up nicely, and so on. So Nigel keeps his eyes on me for the next few days, and I'm ever so grateful to him. You know, he just helped that transition for me. A good man, excellent. And that done, weapon cleaned, everybody form up, and they double us down to the mine dumps. As we're doubling along, you know, I'm thinking to myself, hey, you guys here at 5RR, you got to start taking a little bit of pity on me, you know. I'm gasping a bit here, I'm out of breath. You know, maybe you shouldn't be doubling me with all these A1 fitness guys, you know. I feel like I'm being extended a bit here physically. But anyway, I double along. We get to the base of this mine dump, and we are halted there, and then we are told, right, up to the top, quick as you can, move. What? Run up there. So I run, but I'm afraid I'm more like a bobble, you know, scrambling up there almost on all fours. And we're halfway up, and I'm wheezing now, I'm coughing, and I'm out of breath, and my heart is beating in my chest here. By the time we get to the top, I can feel it in my temples, saying, boom, 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 my poor. I've had it, eh? But anyway, I think, okay, we're at the top now. No ways, down, okay, down's a little bit easier. Get to the bottom, thank goodness that's over. Get up, up again. This is going to kill me. I'm thinking. And, you know, when I had my medical board, those doctors there were discussing amongst themselves the captain that passed me as A1 fit at Llewellyn. And it sounded very much to me, as I overheard their conversation, that there was going to be an inquiry into that man. He was going to have to give account why he passed me A1 fit. And, you know, and I was thinking now of the major. You know, if I had to collapse here on this mine dump, goodness gracious, if an ambulance had to take me to Salisbury Hospital, they're going to ask that man, you know, are you mad? The guy's permanently medical discharged, and you've, you know, sort of maneuvered things over here so that he's back in the army. And I thought, I can't let him down. Oh, there's already one medical doctor in trouble because of me. And I can't have another one, you know. So I call on all my inward resources that I possibly can, stumble down that mine. Don't ask me today how many times we went up and down. I cannot tell you. I just closed my eyes and I just went. I just went blindly up, blindly down, blindly up, blindly down, until at long last somebody said, right, that's enough, form up. They marched us off for breakfast. I don't even know if I had anything to eat for breakfast. I know my knees were still wobbly halfway through that morning. And the worst thing was I still had to face it the next day, and the next, and the next, until we left Bandura. Ooh. It was then that it dawned on me that somebody at 5RR had made a mistake. Nobody knew I was SCAT 3. They thought I was A1, and that's why they put me in a combat unit. And it was up to me. I could go to Mr. Merrington, who was the platoon commander, and say to him, sir, there's been a grave mistake here. I'm supposed to be sitting behind a desk. But no ways. Here was my chance, handed to me on a silver platter. Hey, I was in a combat unit in the bush, off on patrols, ambush, do everything else that soldiers do. Not going to let that slip by me. So I kept my peace, soldiered through that pre-mobilization training period, and got to the end of that call-up. Yeah, not an ounce of fat on me when I demobbed. Burnt brown by the sun. Perfect physical condition, well, as good as it can be, all things considered. And the dreaded Chifua never once raised its head. So it was great. Couldn't wait for the next call-up, and it came soon enough. But it didn't go smoothly. No, sir. As we marched past the tables, when we arrived there at Battalion HQ, you know, they check your status to see if anything's changed in any way since you last reported for duty. So I'm asked by one of the men behind the table, "Are you still A1?" I think I've got to think quickly now, eh? So I said, "I'm sorry, did you say, am I AWOL?" I don't need, you know, clever remarks. Can't you see I'm busy over here? Move it, man. Guy, come here making time for jokes, you big... So I get sworn at and chased on, which is fine. And that's great. I'm in again, and I'm back with Mr. Merrington, and call-up goes as it should. But the one after that, that was a defining one. I try the same trick, but this guy isn't impatient. He's not going to let me get away with it. Hang on. He takes a look, opens my folder, SCAT 3, Fallout. Go to the store. Yeah. So I find myself in the QM store. And I've got to hand out kit and stuff. And I don't like it, eh? Look, I understand the principle. They also serve, who stand and serve. I've got no problem with that. And I thank all the men who served in that war. I have the utmost respect for them. And but it just wasn't for me, that's all. So I sent a message with somebody. Ask Mr. Merrington if he's got a moment, please, to come and see me in the store. They won't let me get away here. Mr. Merrington arrives. What are you doing here? I said, "Sir, you can't leave me here. They put me here in the store. I've got to, you know, I need to be back with you." So he said, "Look, let things settle down, okay, and then I'll see what I can do." So he walks off. Okay, we load up the store's truck. We drive off to Motoko. We get there. Company Sergeant Major says to me, "Listen, I'm going to put you in charge of the bar. And I'm going to give you the cash book and the cash box, and I'm going to show you how to do it right." I'm not very happy, you know. At one time I was quite happy to say, "Yeah, I'll do paperwork, I'll do anything for my country." But yeah, I never thought that I'd have to be a barman for my country. But I keep my peace. I mean, Mr. Merrington said he'd try and do something. Maybe I'll still be away here. Then some guy starts a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not, but we are told the jam stealers, of which, you know, I am now of that category, the jam stealers are going to be taken to a nearby protected village, and they must dig latrines for the locals. Oh, when I heard that, what? I must dig latrines for locals? What's wrong with the locals? Are they that useless? Can't they do this themselves? So I'm not happy, and I'm not going to do it. I can tell you now. I wouldn't want somebody else to do that for me, while I'm fit and strong enough to use a shovel myself, and I'm certainly not going to do it for another able-bodied man. Not a chance. So I go to the CSM and I said, "Sir, there's a story going around here that not only will I be the barman, but I've got to go and dig latrines for the locals." So he looks at me and he says, "Well, what is your point?" He doesn't deny it. So I said, my point is this, I'm not going to do it. I said, so you're free to send a signal to Brady Barracks now, okay? Send for 2 MPs, take me away, put me in the box. But that I'm not going to do, I'm telling you now, sir. Now, a couple of other folks around there were listening to this. And then, of course, there was a bit of a mumble. No, nor am I, no, nor am I. CSM gets really angry. Who were you with before on your previous call-ups? I said, Mr. Merrington, wait here. So off he stalks. He comes back presently with Mr. Merrington in tow. And the lieutenant has got a grin on his face. So without further ado, he points his finger at me and he says, Martin, go and get your kit. Go and join the platoon. So off I go, back to where I belong. And you know, that was the last time that anybody ever asked me for my medical category at 5RR. Thereafter, you know, call-ups were a breeze. I never worried about it at all. I just went straight into the rifle platoon that I was allocated to. So, yeah. You know, you fight your way into the army and you fight your way into a combat unit. But I did try to be a good soldier. You know, I listened to what people said to me, and I read up as well, and I studied, and I looked, and I observed, and I tried to take things in, and I tried to figure out things for myself. And mostly because I realized I'd have to keep myself alive there. You know, being a territorial army, it's not the same as being in a regular army. In the regular army, you guys have got a bit of a different perspective of their work. Territorial army, you've got all sorts of people thrown together. They're conscripts, you know. Many want to be there, and, you know, I commend them for that attitude, and they're good soldiers. They're as good as any regulars, many of them. And unfortunately, there are others who don't belong there, should never be in the army. It's just the system catches them up, and there they are. And they're slackers, and they get through their call-ups somehow. Sometimes they don't. And I would watch this, you know. I'd see them go down to the river to fill their water bottles, and just, you know, blasé about it. And I would always, nobody asked me to, nobody told me to, but I'd always watch out for things like that. Get up, take my rifle, a few magazines, walk some distance behind them, just cover them. While they're doing that, I'd watch the bush. Truck stops on the side of the road. Guys sitting there with their backs to the bush, smoking, nattering, talking about everything under the sun. No all-round defence. I would debus and walk off myself a little distance, watch the bush, watch the truck. So, you know, at least a whole lot of us won't get killed if a RPG-7 hits the side of the vehicle. So I used to do that kind of thing, and others as well, and this, I think, was noticed by another stick leader by the name of Andy Tatham. A wonderful man, became very, very close friends, a very good friend of mine. I have the greatest respect for. An immensely powerful man physically. Was also the MAG gunner of his stick. A leader of men, par excellence, I would say. Could get the very best of his men under any circumstances. And it's not surprising he was made a lieutenant and tasked with the job of forming a support platoon. So Andy pitches up at my work there in Civvy Street one day, and we sit and talk for a couple of hours, and he shares all these things with me and asks would I be interested in being with him in the support platoon as a sniper. So yeah, I'm dead keen, you know. I'll always stand with Andy, you know. I mean, anything he asks me, I'll do. So we go up to Sipalila that weekend. We take a look. C Company, I think, was up there at the time. And we spend a bit of time there looking around. We go back to Salisbury, get our kit. we go back and rejoin them again a few days later. And there are, down the escarpment, there are two gaps, the Uteti gap and the Kadzi gap. And these are used as infiltration routes by the Gooks from time to time. So Andy's idea is we put a couple of snipers on each of those gaps. They can just watch. Maybe in daylight hours we might be lucky and find a group of them moving up that trail and take out as many as we can, sniper fire. So yeah, I'm keen for that, but then I realized that my shooting is not up to the level required for that, and I tell Andy, look, I'm worried, man. I don't think I'm a good enough shot. In all honesty, you need someone who's far more accurate than I am to do that particular work. So he said, well, how about tracking? Got an opening in a tracker, for a tracker controller. So I grabbed that with both hands, and man, was I happy at doing that. Yeah, I really fitted in. That was my calling in the army, I tell you, and I have to thank Andy for that. So yeah, I was doing that for for quite a while, and of course, doing that sort of work, the chances of enemy contacts are that much greater. You can almost be assured of a contact or several contacts during the course of a call-up. And I know I shouldn't I shouldn't find any amusement in this, but there was one occasion when we were under fire. These things don't last long. It's a few seconds and it's over. And you would think you would concentrate and you'd be focused on those few seconds, and I was. But this thought occurred to me in my mind: hey, when they discharge you from the army, they put you on a pension fund, So if you get pulled here today, how do you think those people at the pension office are going to be able to sort this out? Because on the one hand, they've got a set of documents that says this man is permanently medically discharged, and now they've got a new set of documents that's been forwarded onto them saying this guy's been killed in action. It's like two different people. How are they going to deal with this administratively? So that provided a little bit of fun for me as I thought about that, and I giggled a little, and then I thought, no, let me stop thinking about that, concentrated on the job at hand. Yeah, I was coming back to Sipalilo in a chopper one day. I was at that time tracking for the Rhodesian African Rifles, for the Fire Force, and it was late in the afternoon, and the sun was low on the horizon, and the shadow of the Alouette was on the ground beneath me, and I could see, as I looked at it, I could see my own shadow as well there. And I thought to myself, of all the things that had taken place in my life to bring me to this position, and I realized I was pretty well content with my lot. I had thought at one time that I would never be able to serve in the armed forces again, and yet a wonderful opportunity had been presented to me. I had gone as far as I can under the circumstances, considering my physical condition, to be in the fire force alongside a regular unit, the RAR, and I couldn't ask for more, never. So my life has been full. I've had a good life. I've got no complaints, and it's thanks to a great many people. Life is like a jigsaw puzzle. You don't do all these things on your own. There are people who help you, and each one performs his part, and then your life comes together and you have this picture of yourself. What can I say in conclusion? Believe in yourself, certainly. But if you're in a position to help others, and you have it in your power to change the course of somebody else's life, do that. Take a chance. Give them a break. You never know where these things lead to. So, on that note, I think I'll finish off here. Again, I don't know how long I've been talking. Been kind of watching the sun with one eye, you know. You may have seen me squinting now and then. So it seems to have travelled a fair distance up into the sky. I guess I've been here, I don't know, 45 minutes, hour maybe. So I'm going to sign off now. But folks, thank you very much. I'm grateful to you as well. You're also part of my life. I never met you. You only know me by the image on your cell phone or your computer screen in front of you, but believe me, every one of you are important to me, and you add great value to my life. You can't put a price on these things. So thank you all. You keep well. God bless you. Bye for now.